Okay, we're going to show you how to get the bumper ready to be refinished so that the paint will grab nice and hard. What we have is we have wet or dry sanding paper, 800 grit, and we just want to get it wet. Okay, so then we'll get the bumper wet as well. Now the way you're going to sand this, we're going to wrap it on a block, on a soft block, and just keep the pressure even and light. You don't want to be getting really aggressive or a lot of force on here. Just let the sandpaper do the work and watch your edges, because as you're sanding, that's going to be one of your first places you'll accidentally sand through the paint down to the bare plastic, and we don't want to do that where we don't have to. So you'll feel the paper grabs as you're sanding it. You'll see we kind of use a little bit of a circular motion. It just kind of helps us to make sure we've gotten everywhere. Now a nice rule of thumb is, how do you know that you've sanded enough? Well, once you wipe it off, you can see where you've sanded. And you should see everything should kind of be flat. It shouldn't be glossy anymore. And so I'll show you how to do that in just a minute, because you can take a squeegee, you can wipe the bumper off, and then see as it's dry, it'll show you exactly where you've completed and where you need more work. So you can just wipe it off. And as it dries, then you're going to be able to see as you can see it drying, it's starting to show us where we've sanded. So you can see through here, it's nice and evenly sanded. See over here, what this is showing me is I still have some of that orange peel in the bumper from the factory finish. So I'm going to want to sand that more until it looks like this. It should all be even. Same thing with back here, but over in here you can see it's getting nice and flat. And that's what you want it to look like before you're ready to start refinishing. It all has to be flat, it all has to be sanded thoroughly, there should be no gloss left. Now if you have either an air-powered DA sander, or if you have an electric DA sander, you can just buy the discs of 600 or 800 and do the entire bumper that way using a machine. Obviously it's going to be a lot faster, but sometimes that speed can get you into trouble a little quicker. If you're not comfortable using the tool, you can accidentally have sand throughs in areas that it wasn't damaged, and now you have to add paint back to those areas that you really didn't need paint in the first place. So what we're using now is some of the gray scuff pads. They work a little bit better to get into the tight areas by the headlights, the joints, the crevices, all this. And we like to just kind of go over everything we already did with the wet sanding just to make sure everything got fully scratched and it's ready for paint. Okay, now we'll go on to fixing some of the damage. Some of this damage can just be sanded out. It's through the paint and primer, but we can feather it back. We're going to show you how to do that by hand, just because if you don't have a random orbit sander, either air-powered or electric, then the option by hand is your only way to go. And you can do just as good of a job, it just takes a little more time. So we're going to grab, let's see, I have 220 grit sandpaper, wet or dry. Like some of these areas, you can see like this damage, this, all of these are just scrapes, but they're not real deep. If it's very deep, then what you're going to need to do is get a filler that's designed to work with plastics. Usually they're going to be a 2-component. They're going to have a hardener. You mix it up, spread it on, and you're going to need to block it smooth. So with this, what I'm going to do, I'm using 220 wet, and I'm using a crosshatch pattern, which means I'm going like making an X. And that's going to keep your sanding even so that you don't get deep scratches just in one direction only. What you'll start to see is you start getting color that bleeds off. You're actually cutting through the paint, through the primer, into the plastic, and actually feathering this damage back. And I'll show you what we're left with. So you can see once we do that, it doesn't take real long. And your damage is feathered back. You can't feel it anymore. As long as you should start to see these kind of rings. You should see there should be, you have your clear coat up top, then you get paint, then you get primer, and you get bare plastic. And it should all be feathered back kind of gradually from one step to the next. And that'll make sure that it doesn't show up. Okay, I think that gets our damage sanded in this area. So now I'm going to step my grit up to 400, and that's because I know the specs on my primer, and they'll be able to cover 400 scratches, and at the same time have proper adhesion. You don't have to do a lot of sanding with the 400. Mainly all you're trying to do here is bring the scratches up from the 220 that you just sanded up to a 400. Make it a little bit smoother. The primer will lay down better. You'll be left with a better result in the end. So now this area is ready for primer. If you're using an aerosol primer, make sure you shake it up according to the recommended time, because what happens is all the solids settle at the bottom of the can, and if you don't shake it up long enough, you're just going to have a really thin, and it looks okay at first, but it's going to be a really thin primer that goes on and doesn't have all of the components mixed together thoroughly, and that will affect your job in the end. So just give it the appropriate time to shake up, and then you're good to go. First coat, you want to have it light. Don't put it on too heavy. You could get runs, and it's just something you don't need to deal with if you don't have to. Make sure you give proper flash time in between. You should be able to look and see when the solvents flash off. It kind of dulls down to a flat sheen. Your next coat can be slightly heavier. If you don't give proper flash time in between, what's going to happen is that you'll trap solvents underneath at the bottom, and eventually they have to come out. So after you have completed your job and you have the clear on a couple months down the road, your clear will start peeling off along with your color, and that's because the solvents are trying to work their way through. So make sure you give it plenty of time according to the specs to flash off and have the proper dry time. Okay, that should be my last coat of primer. We'll let that flash for the appropriate time. All we need to do to get it ready for paint now, when it's dry, we take 600 grit and we can wet sand to smooth all the overspray areas back and just blend it in real nice. It'll be a nice smooth finish, and then we can apply our paint right on top of there, followed by our clear coat.